Welcome to Permission to Leap, a podcast exploring the stories of people who have brought their visions to life. Each week, I will speak to an inspiring guest and navigate the process they took to take the leap in their own lives, from the day that they first committed to the day that they landed on the other side of their leap. Permission to Leap is the spark that will push you to believe in your dreams again and make them your reality. Today's guest is Ashley Crouch. Ashley is a visibility strategist who lands her clients in the most coveted outlets in the country. Ashley created the premier one-for-one publicity agency that specializes in entrepreneurs in the lived your best life space. For every client served, Appleseed offers microloans to women in resource-poor nations to grow their businesses. Clients include best-selling authors, social good platforms, CEOs of multimillion-dollar companies, TEDx speakers, social innovators, and more. Appleseed has gotten clients featured on hundreds of outlets, including the New York Post, Entrepreneur, Fox Business, MSNBC, CNBC, Huffington Post Live, Fast Company, Forbes, Inc., Time, New York Post, Success, Business Insider, and more. She has secured partnerships with the United Nations, Self Magazine, Maria Shriver, and more. Her Publicity Accelerator, Master the Media, offers high-value publicity training for promising entrepreneurs. Ashley was a nominee for the 2017 Forbes 30 Under 30 list. Hey, Permission to Leap, Bree Seeley here, as always, with a phenomenal guest. I'm so excited to introduce you to one of my personal friends, Ashley Crouch. Ashley is a visibility strategist, and she really helps people get seen, get found, get heard online, and all sorts of other places. So welcome, Miss Ashley.
Thank you, Bree. So good to be here.
So great to see you. For those of you that are watching, I know this is coming out much later, but we are on the eclipse day, and Ashley and I were just sharing some stories about where we're at today and how crazy life is. So we might dive into those a little later. But first, I want to talk about how you started your business, because you're a kick-ass female entrepreneur, and you weren't always a female entrepreneur. You were always kick-ass, I'm sure, although I didn't know you back then. But what was that like? So you were in the corporate world.
Yeah.
What was kind of the tipping point for you to be like, I can't do this anymore, and start your own business?
Yeah. So I've always been mission first. And I've always known since, high school, early years, I wanted to help people. And I thought that would probably look like being in a nonprofit, because I assumed that mission first projects and work that gets done in the world is through that entity, than being the nonprofit world. So I moved, after college, I moved to the East Coast, started working at a nonprofit, and then I wanted to go deeper. I wanted to go bigger. And I love your brand, Permission to Leap, because that is truly the compass for my entire life. So if I looked back at the entire thread of everything I've ever done, it's about always going bigger, always going deeper, even when it's uncomfortable. So what happened was I was starting to get really comfortable in the nonprofit space. I was good at what I was doing. My work was growing exponentially. However, I felt that it was too comfortable. And so I was invited to be on the founding team for a magazine, fashion magazine. And I was like, why not? That sounds great. That sounds fun. That sounds exciting, different. And it was in New York. So I moved into the city, and that's how I say I became an accidental entrepreneur, because I never expected to be one. I never expected to go down that path, but I was always raised by the narrative that if you can dream it, you can do it. And I watched my father build a business from the ground up. So I think it was always in my DNA to become an entrepreneur, but it wasn't until launching the fashion magazine that I fell in love with the whole space and truly the opportunity and the possibility of making a difference, fueling social change, everything that's possible when you leverage profit for purpose. And from there, I just have never looked back.
I totally relate to that. I get so many questions about like, oh, what inspired you to become an entrepreneur? And I'm like, nothing. I said for years, watching my mom do it, being like, nope, that's not me. I'm not doing it. And it was the same thing where I just kind of like fell into it. So was there ever an option for you to not choose it? Like when you were at that point, was there ever an option for you to be like, I'm going to go back to nonprofits?
Yeah, there was actually. So the magazine it had launched. It was a print magazine originally, and I'd been working there for 3 years. And the magazine had done really, really well. We were actually the first no Photoshop fashion magazine to exist. So I was able to witness firsthand the lives changed and the hope created from behind the scenes, something as simple as treating the models with worth, feeding them during the day on the photo shoot.
What?
Right?
Feed models?
Allowing them to laugh, allowing them to smile. Everyone that we worked with, the writers, but also the message of purpose and celebrating the best of who women are. Like, something you believe in so much is just celebrating how amazing women already are. We don't need to be changed, fixed, altered. And so the magazine really woke me up to a global movement that was possible through the medium of this magazine. And I started to feel restless again. I was feeling a little bit comfortable, kind of figuring out what to do next. And what I say is restlessness is an indication that it's time for expansion. And so after 3 years, I did a lot of soul searching, and I was starting to get job offers from PR agencies for positions far beyond any formal training. It would have been considered like a sexy job to take them. And, I had done a lot with PR. We got 180 media features in 8 months for the magazine during its launch, including tons of national outlets, New York Post, Harper's Bazaar, Fox Business, Queen Latifah Show, on and on. And I knew I wanted to do something like that, but every time I got a job offer, something did not feel right. And people were questioning me. They were asking, why did you turn down yet another job offer? What are you doing? Like, are you living on savings at this point? There was just a lot of questioning and skepticism about why I wasn't doing the traditional thing. And yet, despite that, I feel that I turned the doubters into believers because I continued to follow through with what was my core vision, which is to keep growing and expanding. So the catalyst through all that is I'm searching, I'm journaling, I'm trying to architect something during the midst of this transition. I went out to lunch with an entrepreneur, a guy, and he is the only one in the sea of voices that told me to go for it. He is the only one.
I just got like full body goosebumps.
He literally, and even my own family, and everyone around me is just like a darling human being. So they wanted my good, but I think a lot of people still fall into that traditional mindset of the shoulds, and we're shackled by the shoulds, and it holds us back from the full expansion of what we're capable of doing. And I went out to lunch and was just brainstorming this with this entrepreneur, CEO of a company, and he said, why are you waiting till you're 45 to live your dreams? Basically, that's what he said to me. And he's like, go for it. And so that was the green light that I needed. So I was very fortunate to have someone who gave me that permission when I couldn't give it to myself. But since then, I feel that I've been more the catalyst for like following that journey.
There's so many bits and pieces of that story that I want to dive into. The first one is the restlessness. I want to also talk about your family and like the people that were, doubting you or like all that stuff. And there was another one in there too. And man, if I remember it, we'll get there. But let's talk first about that restlessness. So a lot of people categorize restlessness as like an indication that they shouldn't continue moving forward.
Right.
So my question is, were you always programmed to believe that restlessness meant you needed to grow? Or did you have times when you were younger that this restlessness meant like, I need to back off because I'm approaching danger?
Yeah, both but for different reasons. So I see this a lot in my family and in my own life. When we approach the parameter of what we believe is our paradigm for what we're allowed to do, what we should do, we have those paradigms, right? Like we grew up with certain narratives about what women should be, what women should do, what we're capable of, the rooms we're allowed in, the sports fields that we're allowed to play on. Like there's certain parameters and narratives that we've been given through a variety of circumstances. Some are family, some media, and some within ourselves, right? And so within that, there's a whole narrative around, well, we need to shatter the glass ceiling and women need to really break through. That is true. However, I also believe that there is an internal glass ceiling that we all have And when we look up and see that glass ceiling, it's actually a mirror. And the mirror, the reflection that we see of ourselves, whatever that is, whatever we think we should be, that is as far and as high as we will achieve, because we cannot surpass our own self-image. So that parameter creates boundaries. And when we start to approach those outer limits, we start to feel fear. And I can think of many times, and I'm sure you can also relate being on this journey, panicked, like utter panic, tears, chills, all the physiological symptoms that go along with breaking through a boundary that is either subconscious that we're not aware of or consciously aware of. But either way, that the progress of passing through that boundary is extremely terrifying. And so it was not, I mean, along the way, there's been certain points at which I realized, oh, this is just a paradigm problem or something. But I think what I realized fairly quickly is that if I don't expand, I'm dooming myself to a small life, which is what I fear more than anything. So I think what I believe is that we're called to be constantly expanding. As human beings and as women, we have a voice to share. And if we stifle that voice, we hold the world back from the gift of what we can truly contribute. And so I have a motivation, I have a duty, I have a responsibility to get over that fear in order to provide the gift and the contribution that I was born to make, and that other people will suffer if I'm not fully who I was designed to be. So that's kind of overall like how it's helped me get through that feeling of fear, and to recognize restlessness as a positive thing and an indication to go deeper rather than to shrink.
Yeah, I love that. I was actually just writing about one of my experiences with this morning, and how, like, literally the days leading up to me leaving to write the book, I was having full, complete breakdowns. Like 2 days before, or the day before, I cried for 5 hours, but like 6 a.m. till 11 a.m. or something like that. And the only reason I stopped was because my intern came to my house. And I was like, okay, Bree, it's time to be an adult now. Like, no crying, you gotta move on. And then the next day I did it again. And my house sitter came and was like patting me on the back and like drying my tears as she was like shoving me into the Uber to like get out and go write my book. And like, I was having so many, and I was totally just spiraling down into that, like that pit.
Yeah.
You know, it definitely takes some mindset, some effort, some like oomph to really break through that stuff. Because yeah, I mean, I was totally approaching my glass mirror ceiling.
Yeah. Yeah. But so, I mean, your story and mine, I believe there's so many other people who've experienced that. I don't think we're alone in that problem, that situation, because the world is accelerating at light speed, and more than ever before, we have to face dramatically larger and more frequent transitions than our parents did. So even if our parents were wildly successful or whatever their upbringing was, they're actually incapable of fully preparing us for the life that we currently live in. And so we need new tools, new narratives, new resources available to us to navigate this from a place of strength. So, we're going to feel that, but it's in the creation of solutions such as the ones you create, and our own coping mechanisms, that allow us to keep moving forward. So I just say we have to give ourselves grace.
I love that. And it kind of ties back into what I wanted to address about with the people that were around you during that time that were like, are you nuts? Are you crazy? How are you surviving? What are you doing? Because I feel like those of us that are here to do things in different ways all face that at some point, because we're surrounded by the people we're surrounded by up to a certain point, right? And then we start making changes, and the people that have been around us, it's not that they're bad or that they don't care for us, just that they have a different perspective on life.
Yeah.
And so, I always say, if you were building $1 million business, would you go to advice to say like the little bodega on the corner, of the like solopreneur who's like toiling day in and day out to build their business?
Right. Which is also awesome. That's an amazing business option.
Totally.
A different set of actions to take to arrive at that destination, as opposed to, the $1 million business. Yeah. Totally.
So I love that you reached out to someone that was in alignment with your vision and where you were going. Did you know? Because sometimes I feel like we purposefully either go to people who are going to tell us not to do it,
Right.
or we purposefully go to people who are going to like validate us and like push us towards what we want. So did you know when you were going to him what that was going to be?
Not at all. No, but you're absolutely right that that can happen. So it can be a self-repetitive cycle where if you have money problems, you go to the friend who's also broke, and then you complain about the shared situation. But Tony, I think it's Tony Robbins. He says, go to the people for advice who already have the thing that you need and the thing that you want. So similar to your previous comment there. I did not know what this gentleman would share with me. However, I knew that he seemed to have, from the outside looking in, a kind of lifestyle or situation that I would enjoy. And, but how all that came about is, so during this whole soul searching phase, I've been at Verily for 3 years, and I had not taken a vacation in I don't know how long. We were working around the clock, including weekends. I was roommates with 2 of my colleagues. So that was a lot of exposure day in and day out. We saw each other more than our significant others and more than our families combined, I think. And so I really desperately needed a vacation. I had started to get to that place where I was losing sight of my own voice and feeling numb about life in general. And I think it was due to the overstimulation. So I wound up buying a one-way ticket to France. And I knew no one there. I did not know the language. I did not have a place to stay. I think at that point I was living on savings because it was a startup, so unpredictable money situations. And I went to France, and my only vow to myself was that I would journal every single day while I was there. So I stayed for a month, and when I came back, I had written 250 pages. And in the process of that self-discovery, my voice started to reemerge. And in it was a picture of what I wanted my life to look like with greater clarity. So what would it look like if I could just dream? What would it look like if I could help more people, exponentially more people than ever before? What would it look like if I actually laughed more often, right? Like what I realized on one awakening moment was like, I don't laugh anymore, and neither do my friends. And that was an indication that something was desperately wrong. Like we shouldn't be navigating the world from such a somber, like grinding place. There has to be a spirit of play and like effervescence in this whole journey. And so from there, I had a sort of a blueprint or like the skeleton of some kind of vision. And then I just started going and asking people for advice. And then subsequently, that's when my friend gave me that go ahead, the green light on my dreams.
Awesome. Oh, I love that. So when you got that green light, then moving through this time period where you've been building this business and all this stuff, what has been kind of the easiest part of this leap and this creation for you?
Mm-hmm. The easiest part for me is the dreaming. And that may actually not be the easiest for everyone, but for me it is. I love dreaming about what could be possible instead of looking at current reality. So a lot of people look at current reality and they see circumstances. And those circumstances define and decide how they are going to take action. I'm not one of those people. I am, but to an extent. I'm the person that looks at current circumstances and asks, how could this be different, better? How could I change it? And how could I make it what I would like it to be? And so I push beyond current circumstances to the ultimate vision. So that's actually the easier part for me, to imagine and dream. And I think that's a critical piece. That is actually a critical piece. So what I tell people and train people now, women in particular, is that your life expands to meet the size of the dream that you have for it.
It's like the goldfish in the pool. Did you ever read that book when you were a kid?
Yes, you have to leave the little fishbowl, which I'm sure we all continually have to remind ourselves of that on the journey. But yes, your life expands to meet the size of the dream that you have for it. We live small lives when we have small dreams. And so the dreaming was the easiest part. However, that is not what moves the needle. The dreaming is the starting point, the launch pad, the trampoline to leap onto something else. And from there, there's been a lot of messiness in moving forward.
So let's talk about that messiness, because then, of course, you know, the easiest question now comes, what's been the hardest part of all this? What's that messiness look like?
Okay, so the messiness is what will always exist in the creative process of creating something out of nothing. And that's literally what entrepreneurs are. I think the reason why it's become more and more sexy today to be an entrepreneur is because it's the hero's journey, right? Like, you're forging a path, you're going somewhere that's never gone before. We live and die by the stories of, you know, traveling to the moon and going out to the Wild West. Like, we grew up with these narratives, and today,
Star Wars,
right? Like, all of the different movies that we grew up with, we live and die by those stories. And so, the story of traveling west, so like you and I both live in California, the West is settled. Like, there's nothing to explore, and so now we're trying to explore space. And the human spirit is designed to explore. The entrepreneur's journey is one of exploration, one of creativity, one of manifesting something out of nothing through the power of our own mind and what we can dream, what we can create, which is exponentially more than ever before due to technology. So this is a whiny story, but what's hardest for me is creating something out of nothing, giving myself permission to take larger and larger leaps, and taking action. So dreaming is potential, and action is where the progress truly happens. So it's very easy to wake up in the morning and think, what am I going to do today? What should be the goal that I should tackle today? And what I've realized is that my business is only an external manifestation of my own internal development. So as the engine of that vehicle, I have to constantly be taking action, constantly developing myself, constantly working through all the amazing wisdom that you offer, you know, the manifestation schools, permission to leap. I mean, all of that is so critical for truly creating change. But it's also the hardest work, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's where it all happens.
I have actions that I butt up against and struggle with. And I mean, there's been one on my to-do list, let's be real, for over 2 months that I still am like, every day, today, I was like, I'm going to do it today. I'm totally not fucking doing it today. I'm not doing it today. And then I'm like, oh, tomorrow, I'm probably not going to do it tomorrow either. So when you're butting up against something like that, where you're like, I know I have to take this action, but I don't really want to take this action, what do you do?
A series of things. So I've created a morning routine for myself. And I mean, I just so resonate with your experience, Bree. It's probably so many of your listeners' experience as well. But it is a day-to-day. It's a day-to-day struggle, and the struggle is the greatness. So I like to say that the progress is the point. The journey is the point. And we're always on the journey. So I created a morning routine for myself, which provides an anchor of rituals to help to prime myself mentally. And that way I know when I wake up in the morning, this is exactly what I should be doing. And it consists of like four key areas that have to do with prayer, meditation, leading into journaling and gratitude, leading into affirmations, and then action at the end. And by that point, putting myself through that funnel, coming out on the other side, hopefully I'm well equipped and primed to be in that state of taking action, for sure. But the other thing is really just to push through it. I mean, it's just doing it.
Yeah. I struggle between that, like, forcing it and allowing it thing, because I know that forcing it isn't necessarily always the answer, but there's like this fine line between where do you just fucking force yourself to do the action and it's an inspired action too. It's not like I'm manufacturing this, like, oh, I have to do it. Like
Yeah.
every day I meditate and I get this like, will you just fucking do it already?
Yeah.
And so it's that like fine line between being like, I'm going to allow it to happen and like, I'm going to fucking make it happen.
Right. Well, and the other question too has to be, and you probably do this as well, I have to dig in and ask why the hesitation? Why is this causing such a roadblock? Like usually I'm much more of an action taker. And yeah, I have this one thing that's like, it's still just lingering there. And Ariana Huffington says the easiest way to get like finished with your to-do list is to remove things from the to-do list. You just like take it off the list. And the simplification that helps. But what's the reason for the hesitation? One could be fear, and that could be a good thing. Fear can be a great thing to indicate you're doing something right, or it could be something that's motivated by a legitimate fear, right? Like for survival. I may not actually be supposed to post this right now, or apply to this summit to speak right now. Like I may not actually be fully prepared to contribute value. The other thing might be it's just not in alignment with what you actually are meant to do. In that case, there's great freedom there in saying, bless you, no, thank you anyway. That was a good opportunity for someone else, and moving on with your life. But it's that daily question. And I'd be curious to hear if you actually have a sort of board of advisors or someone that you speak with, personal board of advisors that you've created, because that can be helpful sometimes too.
Interesting. I was just talking to a colleague and good friend, I think it was last week, and she said to me, she's like, yeah, because if you take action on it, it actually has the possibility of being created. And I was like, oh man. So mine was definitely that first one that you mentioned. But so tell us what your what's your big vision? What's your like huge end leap goal?
Yeah. Well, with the publicity agency, so I run a publicity agency for women entrepreneurs, startups, professionals. With that company, my vision is to help women get the visibility they deserve so they can accelerate their message and their mission in the world. That is my mission. How I do that, what are the metrics for quantifying if I'm successful? I'm designing a program that will be a platform for women to allow that to happen. So the metrics for success would be, can I teach 1,000 women this year? Can I teach 2,000 women? Can I teach 8,000 women? Once we start getting into those numbers, I feel that the level of contribution is truly beginning to take shape and gaining the momentum that I would like to have, well on the way to that goal. The other thing is that working with women entrepreneurs more on the service-based client level, for every client we serve, we offer microloans to women in resource-poor nations. And so a metric of success would be, can I fuel 100 businesses around the globe? Could I actually create a structure of profit for good that allows that to happen? And if I could imagine that, I'm sure it's possible to do. So at this point, we're in the Philippines, El Salvador, Cambodia, and Kenya. And so my goal, my metrics of success would be, could I do 100? And that would be so amazing. So amazing.
I love it. Thanks for sharing. I have started asking people this question because then I feel like we can all hold space for you to be, the person that's serving 8,000, women a year and contributing to 100 other female entrepreneurs a year and all that stuff. So
yes,
holding space for that to be your reality.
Yes. Amazing. Thank you.
So you've dropped so many great nuggets in this, and I'm excited because I get to go back and re-listen to it again to dissect it all. If people want to learn more from you and hear more about your journey and your leaps and all the things, where do they find you?
Yeah, so if anyone would like to find out more about the visibility consulting or service work that I'm doing, then they can find me at Appleseed, like Johnny Appleseed, communications with an S.co. And through there, they can reach out to me. via email. I would love to hear from anyone.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing all of your leaps with us. This was a phenomenal interview. Knock on wood, without any technical difficulties. And we're both still here. The world hasn't ended, so we made it.
Yes.
And yeah, thank you. Thank you for what you do in the world and for who you are. And I can't wait to celebrate with you when you've reached your 100th business that you're supporting.
Thank you, Bree. I'm so excited about the work you're doing in the world too, and the importance of helping women give themselves permission to leap. It was so fun to speak with you today.
Thank you again for joining me for another fantastic episode of Permission to Leap. If you're looking to take your next big leap, be sure to check out my book that guides you through the 6 phases of the leap process at http://permissiontoleap.today. My book will support you in moving through your leap with more clarity and ease, because there needs to be more people like you living an inspired life and making a positive difference in the world. Much love today and always. I will catch you on the next episode of Permission to Leap.